Hi, everybody, and welcome back to this episode of Bearcat Chats. I'm Jacob Wilkins, and a pleasure to highlight the MSW Residential Life program and two of the ResLife interns, Phoebe Byrnes and Anthony Penaherrera. Anthony, Phoebe, thanks so much for joining me.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah,
Sure.
absolutely. Thank you so much.
Of course. Tell me, Anthony, let's start with you. We spoke with Mara Santos and Jessica Treadwell back in the spring, just to talk about how things were going at the start of the pandemic and really to highlight the program in general. For those that may not be familiar, really tell me what you guys do.
So we're residential life interns, and I think a lot of what we usually do is a little bit different than compared to how it is now from the pandemic to this year. I'd say a lot of it is student support. So we're residential life, so we're supporting the students that are on campus. I would say that, pre-pandemic, a lot of that support would probably be in person and would allow for a lot of different meetings. Right now, a lot of it is just on Zoom or remote, but we're continuing to support students that live on campus.
And Phoebe, when we spoke spoke with Mara and Jessica back in the spring, kids were at home, students were at home, and it was a lot of focus on, all right, establishing boundaries with parents so they have the privacy to do the sessions and not be interrupted. Now students are back on campus, but the challenge is they may not be seeing you in person. So how do you navigate that tricky situation?
It's definitely, a learning curve for everyone involved. So I think, like I'm used to, working with students face to face. Like you want to be able to, when you're working with the students remotely, you want to, set boundaries, set guidelines with the students and see like what's comfortable for them, what works for them, making sure there's no distractions really. And, like just kind of making sure the students feel safe and comfortable and that we're supporting them in whatever way possible that they need.
And so to take it a step further, Anthony, I'm thinking, all right, I've got a roommate and I want to set up a session, but maybe the issue is with my roommate. How do I create that sense of confidentiality and privacy in these new times?
Yeah, sure. That's a good question. I think that a lot of times the student will try to avoid that situation, whether that be waiting for the roommate to leave their suite or their room, or even going to a different location, whether that's outside or, anywhere they could get away just for a moment's time and just engage one-on-one in support.
Yeah, and like going along with that, if we know ahead of time, like, we can communicate via email first, and then if it's appropriate, we could go outside and meet and, be 6 feet apart in a way, like, so they're away from that environment that is causing them any like stress or anxiety or anything like that.
So that's a big piece here. There is an opportunity for a socially distanced session.
Oh, absolutely.
If both
Okay.
comfortable, yeah.
Right. And Phoebe, is the RA still sort of that first person to go to potentially to get a referral to the program?
I think referrals can really come from really anywhere, but I do believe that, like the first step is really to ultimately see like what the RA can do, and if it's out of the RA's hands, or if they just need, like additional support, then they kind of send over a referral to us.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been referrals from RAs. There's been referrals from RDs and ACs and ADs as well. Even some self-referrals too,
And Anthony, I ask because to me, what really stood out about this program and learning about it is that you are immersed, almost embedded in your living community, whether it's Mountain View or Hinman. Can you talk about or elaborate on that relationship and how you guys are working with the various residence halls?
Yeah, sure. I think that again, this kind of builds off my answer from the earlier portion of the interview, where, I think ideally it'd be a lot different. We really would be immersed specifically really within that community, face-to-face interactions in person. And now at this time, it's a lot of it is still remote and still email contact and Zoom meetings, right? But sure, we are still certainly involved with our particular communities. I will say though that we have been able to and afford the opportunity to work with other students from other communities as a result of being able to do Zoom. So I think that's been a big positive as well. The flexibility kind of.
It's expanded your reach. Phoebe, what are the biggest issues that, and respecting, of course, individual student confidentiality here, but as a whole, and speaking generally, what are the biggest things that students have said and are dealing with as they come back on campus?
Some of the different things, I mean, it ranges, of course. I've, reaching out to like the students who are in quarantine and isolation, that's definitely a new thing for us interns. It's never been done in the program before, so that's difficult. Not really, like students dealing with boredom and not being able to leave and, kind of like literally feeling like isolated, like from the world. They can't really go anywhere or do anything. That's been challenging. Just like finding different ways for students to be busy, keep busy with their time.
Phoebe touched on a lot of those, on a lot of what's, kind of different, right? The quarantine and the isolation, that student outreach, right? Dealing with instances of new instances where students are in a situation where they would not be in if it weren't for the current situation that we're in the pandemic. So I'd say that, COVID-19 and the guidelines surrounding that, as well as quarantine and isolation, those are concerns that are new concerns that may produce new anxieties to the students that are on campus. And like Phoebe was saying, was that there are still though those kind of normal or routine, right, anxieties and stresses that college students do have each year in and out, right? Whether that be with moving into a new situation, having new roommates, living on their own, negotiating and mediating with busy schedules and new classes and trying to figure themselves out.
Yeah, and I want to jump on that point, Phoebe. And you have students, as Anthony said, it's stressful. Let's say the first year student coming in and they're trying to make friends, and it feels like here's when I have to establish my friend group that's going to carry me through college, and what clubs am I going to join, all that stuff. How do you work with students to be able to manage that anxiety and make new friends?
Yeah, I mean, I've, worked with a couple students, and that's been a thing that's come up, like I can't have that regular normal freshman feel because, we can't go and meet new friends, we can't go and hang out in another friend's dorm. And that's been, something where it's like, are you crossing those COVID guidelines that the university's put in place? And then there's that anxiety of like, oh no, did I break a rule, like a COVID rule? Am I going to get kicked out of housing now? So it's like, the stressors keep piling up. And I think it's just important to like, let these students know, like, the guidelines that are put in place are just to help everyone stay safe. It's not something like, we're not trying to like punish anybody, but it's just, this is how things have to be right now. But it also like offering like, what support can I give you? Like how can we go through that? And I think it's definitely different with each individual student that you come in contact with, because everyone has a different set of familiarities and different, comfort levels. And so I think it's really like on an individual basis on how you deal with those stressors.
Anthony, what about the students in quarantine? There's got to be a really exacerbated or bigger feling of I'm falling behind, not from a classwork standpoint, but making friends, because I literally cannot leave this quarantine. I don't know if you've worked with anyone individually that is in quarantine, but what's your advice to them?
Well, no, that's a good question, Jacob. And I think that our advice is really that this is a new situation, and we just kind of got to make the best of this new situation as we can. And what I think, as residential life interns, as well as just a part of the university at large, I think we're doing a really good job at reaching out to these students that are in quarantine and isolation, so they do know that they have supports, and so they do feel like at least there are people there to support them and try to communicate with them as they are missing out on maybe that little bit of socialization within their dorms or their situations.
Empathy seems big too, Phoebe, right? Like, not that kids would be like, oh my gosh, we haven't, you weren't friends with us from day one, but that people are going to be even more understanding, that almost like a reality show, new people are going to show up and that there's a chance to make friends with them, and that these people aren't going anywhere, even if you're sort of out of commission, so to say, on the social front for a couple of weeks.
Right. And then also, like letting students know, like the quarantine isolation, it's just, we got to take it step by step. It's not like it's a forever thing. It's not a full semester thing.
And I should say there are ways for people to continue to make friends in isolation because of all the virtual activities that may have not been there before. Anthony, I want to highlight something that has been a hot topic pre-pandemic, and I'm sure will always be a hot topic, and that's social media. The idea that everyone is having a great time around me. Even if the sky's falling, someone's still posting an Instagram story, and you think, oh my gosh, why am I not getting that, great hike in or something? Does that still come up, and how do you deal with that with students?
I think that's something that, is going to continue to come up throughout time. And like Phoebe was saying earlier, with individual differences, it's something that you deal with on a case by case basis. But, again, it's important to kind of remind individuals that, this is just a moment, right, in time. And so there's always a process, and there's always further steps and other things to be done. And so if one's feeling like they're missing out, having the fear of missing out for just one occasion, it's super important to validate them. Absolutely, that I understand where you're coming from, and I apologize that you are missing out. But this is just a part of the process that we're in right now, and it'll get you back to where you need to be and where you will not be missing out on those things.
And Anthony, Phoebe, we'll start with you, Anthony. Any final thoughts you have for students as they? I guess we're now a couple of weeks into the fall semester.
Yeah, no, just keep on, keep on keeping on, right? But really, seriously, just realize that, there are MSW interns here to support you. There's a lot of supports here on campus. And as far as I'm concerned, we are all very, very passionate about supporting you.
Yeah, I completely agree. Just we are here. If you need any type of support, we can direct you in anywhere you need to go, provide any help with anything that you need. Just make sure everyone's staying safe. And we hope that everyone has a great semester.
And hey, being there, it's half the battle. The idea that students just know that you're there as a resource. Anthony, Phoebe, thanks so much for the time. Really excited to see this program continue to grow.
Thanks, Jacob.
For having us.